There is a strange burden that often comes with intelligence. The sharper your mind becomes, the more you begin to notice. You notice contradictions that others ignore. You see patterns beneath ordinary events. You recognize consequences before they arrive. You question assumptions that everyone else accepts without hesitation. Overthinking can become one of the greatest difficulties for an intelligent person because a powerful mind does not simply see one possibility, it sees many. When you understand that every decision can create different consequences, your mind may continue searching for the perfect answer long after a reasonable answer is already available. You begin examining every detail, imagining every possible outcome, questioning your own judgment, and creating scenarios that may never happen. The ability to think deeply is valuable, but without control, it can become a trap. Instead of helping you move forward, your intelligence begins creating hesitation. You may spend hours analyzing a decision that could have been made in minutes. You may replay conversations, wondering whether your words were interpreted correctly. You may imagine what could go wrong before anything has even happened. The problem is not thinking itself. The problem is thinking without an endpoint. A disciplined mind knows when analysis has produced enough information and when it is time to act. Many people believe that confidence means knowing exactly what will happen. It does not. Confidence often means accepting that you cannot know everything and still being willing to make a decision. There will always be information you do not possess, variables you cannot predict, and circumstances you cannot control. Waiting for complete certainty can therefore become a sophisticated form of procrastination. You tell yourself that you are preparing, but sometimes you are simply avoiding the possibility of being wrong. This becomes especially dangerous when the decision is connected to your identity. If you believe that intelligent people should always make perfect choices, every decision becomes a test of your intelligence. You become afraid of making a mistake because the mistake seems to prove that you are not as capable as you believed. But mistakes do not prove that you are unintelligent. They provide information that analysis alone cannot provide. Reality teaches lessons that imagination cannot fully reproduce. You can think about starting a business for months, but eventually you must interact with customers. You can study communication endlessly, but eventually you must have difficult conversations. You can plan your future carefully, but eventually you must take a step without knowing exactly where the path will lead. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates adjustment. Adjustment creates progress. One useful discipline is to separate decisions into categories. Some decisions deserve deep analysis because the consequences are significant and difficult to reverse. Others are temporary and can easily be changed. Do not give every decision the same mental weight. Spending an hour choosing between minor options while avoiding a major responsibility is not intelligence, it is misplaced attention. Learn to ask yourself what information is genuinely necessary, what is already known, what remains uncertain, and what action can produce more information. Sometimes the best way to answer a question is to act carefully and observe the result. You should also learn to recognize when your thoughts are repeating rather than developing. If you have considered the same possibility repeatedly without discovering anything new, more thinking may not improve the decision. At that point, movement becomes necessary. Set a reasonable deadline for analysis, make the best decision available, and accept responsibility for adjusting later if circumstances change. This approach does not eliminate mistakes, but it prevents endless hesitation from becoming a lifestyle. Intelligence becomes powerful when combined with decisiveness. You do not need to silence your mind, you need to direct it. Think deeply when depth is useful, simplify when simplicity is enough, and act when analysis has reached its limit. The goal is not to become careless. It is to stop demanding certainty from a world that can never provide it. Seeing patterns that others ignore can be a powerful advantage. But it can also become a burden because once you begin noticing connections, contradictions, and repeated behaviors, it becomes difficult to return to the simplicity of not seeing them. Intelligent people often look beyond isolated events. They notice how small decisions create larger consequences, how certain behaviors repeat, how incentives influence people, and how words sometimes contradict actions. While others may focus on what is happening right now, a person who thinks deeply may already be considering what happens next. This ability can be valuable in business, relationships, leadership, learning, and everyday decision making, but it requires discipline because not every pattern you notice is real. The mind is naturally designed to search for connections, and sometimes it can create meaning where none exists. This is why intelligent observation must be combined with evidence. If you notice that someone behaves differently around certain people, do not immediately decide why. Observe the behavior repeatedly. Ask what facts support your interpretation and what facts might contradict it. A sharp mind should not only detect patterns, it should test them. One of the most useful forms of pattern recognition is noticing repeated behavior. People may make promises, but repeated actions often reveal more. Someone who constantly arrives late may have a different relationship with time than someone who consistently arrives early. Someone who becomes defensive whenever responsibility is discussed may have difficulty accepting accountability. Someone who celebrates your success may genuinely support you, while someone who repeatedly minimizes it may feel threatened. None of these observations should become instant judgments. A single event can be explained by many circumstances. The pattern becomes meaningful when it appears repeatedly across different situations. Intelligent people can also notice patterns within systems. They may see that a workplace rewards certain behaviors, that a social group follows unspoken rules, or that a particular environment encourages people to behave differently from how they behave elsewhere. Understanding these invisible structures can help you make better decisions. Instead of asking only who is responsible, you can ask what incentives are causing this behavior. Instead of asking why someone repeatedly fails, you can ask what system makes failure easy and improvement difficult. This deeper level of thinking can turn confusion into understanding. But there is a danger. When you become good at recognizing patterns, you may begin believing that you are always right. This can create arrogance. You may interpret every event as confirmation of what you already believe. That is why intellectual humility is essential. A pattern is a hypothesis until reality continues to support it. Be willing to change your interpretation when new evidence appears. Do not confuse intuition with certainty. Intuition can be useful because the brain recognizes patterns beneath conscious awareness, but intuition should be tested when the consequences are important. You should also avoid constantly analyzing people. Not every facial expression contains a hidden message. Not every delayed response indicates hostility. Not every disagreement is evidence of jealousy. Overinterpretation can turn intelligence into paranoia. The goal is to see more clearly, not to become suspicious of everything. Use pattern recognition to improve decisions, not to manufacture enemies. Another important advantage of seeing patterns is preparation. If you recognize that certain circumstances repeatedly lead to certain outcomes, you can act before the consequences become obvious. You notice when a habit is beginning to damage your productivity. You recognize when a relationship repeatedly follows the same unhealthy cycle. You see when an opportunity is becoming more realistic because several conditions are aligning. You can prepare instead of waiting for events to force you to react. The deepest form of pattern recognition is seeing patterns within yourself. Notice when you procrastinate, what triggers your insecurity, when you lose focus, and what environments make you perform better. Once you recognize these patterns, you gain the ability to change them. Awareness becomes useful when it leads to action. Seeing what others ignore should not make you feel superior. It should make you more responsible. If you can see a problem earlier, prepare earlier. If you can recognize a weakness, work on it. If you can identify a recurring mistake, stop repeating it. The value of perception is not in knowing more than everyone else. It is in using what you notice to make wiser choices. Finding people who truly understand you can be difficult when your mind naturally seeks depth, complexity, and meaning in places where others may be satisfied with simplicity. You may enjoy conversations about ideas, human behavior, goals, philosophy, strategy, creativity, or the future, while people around you prefer lighter subjects. This difference can sometimes create the feeling that you are surrounded by people but still alone. You may speak, yet feel that the most important parts of what you think remain unexplained. You may understand other people easily while feeling that very few people understand you in return. This can become one of the most frustrating experiences for someone who thinks deeply. But the solution is not to assume that you are superior or that everyone else is incapable of understanding you. People have different interests, experiences, personalities, and ways of processing the world. A person who does not enjoy deep intellectual discussion is not automatically unintelligent, just as someone who speaks constantly about complex ideas is not automatically wise. Understanding this prevents loneliness from turning into arrogance. One reason deep thinkers struggle to find connection is that they may reveal only a small portion of their internal world. They analyze themselves extensively and may hesitate to share their thoughts because they expect misunderstanding or judgment. This can create a cycle. You want to be understood, but you do not give people enough opportunity to know you. Genuine connection requires some vulnerability. You do not need to reveal everything immediately, but you should allow trustworthy people to gradually see what matters to you. Another difficulty is that meaningful relationships take time. You cannot always identify a compatible person through one conversation. Someone may initially seem ordinary but later reveal remarkable depth when circumstances create the opportunity for a deeper discussion. Give people time, ask questions, listen to their experiences. You may discover forms of intelligence that are different from your own. A person may not speak about philosophy, but may understand people extremely well. Another may not analyze strategy, but may possess remarkable emotional wisdom. Another may express themselves simply while carrying years of valuable experience. Intelligence has many forms, and recognizing this broadens your ability to connect. You should also stop expecting one person to fulfill every intellectual and emotional need. A healthy life can contain different relationships for different purposes. One friend may share your ambitions, another may make you laugh, another may give practical advice, another may understand your spiritual life, another may challenge your thinking. Expecting one person to understand every dimension of you can create unnecessary disappointment. Build a diverse network of meaningful relationships instead. At the same time, be selective about who receives your deepest trust. Not everyone needs access to your private thoughts, fears, ambitions, or vulnerabilities. Let trust develop through consistent behavior. A person who listens without immediately judging, respects your boundaries, keeps private information private, and shows genuine curiosity may be someone worth knowing more deeply. You should also learn to communicate your inner world more clearly. Sometimes people do not understand us because we assume they should automatically recognize what we mean. They cannot read your thoughts. Explain your perspective. Ask whether they understand. Listen to their interpretation. Communication is a two-way process. If you want deeper relationships, become better at expressing yourself without expecting others to decode you. Another important lesson is learning to enjoy your own company without becoming isolated. Solitude can be valuable for reflection, creativity, learning, and emotional recovery. You do not need constant social interaction to prove that you are connected, but solitude should remain a choice rather than a wall built from disappointment. If you repeatedly tell yourself that nobody understands you, you may eventually stop giving anyone the opportunity to try. Stay open, continue meeting people, continue learning, continue listening. You may find that genuine understanding appears in unexpected places. The goal is not to find a crowd that thinks exactly like you. It is to find people who respect your complexity, challenge you constructively, and allow you to be honest without requiring you to constantly perform. When you find even a few such relationships, they can become deeply valuable. You do not need everyone to understand you. You need to become capable of recognizing the people who are willing to try. Carrying the weight of high expectations can become a serious problem when intelligence creates a strong awareness of what you could potentially achieve. When you recognize your abilities, you may begin comparing your present self with the person you believe you could become. Instead of appreciating progress, you focus on the distance between where you are and where you think you should be. This can create constant pressure. You may feel that every day must be productive, every decision must be intelligent, and every mistake represents wasted potential. The danger is that high expectations can quietly turn into perfectionism. You stop asking whether you are improving and start asking whether you are performing perfectly. These are very different questions. Improvement allows mistakes. Perfectionism often treats mistakes as evidence of failure. A person with high expectations may achieve impressive results and still feel dissatisfied because the mind immediately moves the standard higher. The moment one goal is reached, another appears. Success becomes difficult to enjoy because it is treated as a temporary obligation rather than an achievement. This can create a strange situation where you are objectively progressing but subjectively feel behind. One reason this happens is comparison. Intelligent people often have enough awareness to recognize the capabilities of others. You may see someone who is more successful, more disciplined, more skilled, or further ahead in a particular field, and instead of using their progress as inspiration, you may use it as evidence that you are failing. But comparison without context is misleading. You see another person's visible results without seeing their years of preparation, failures, opportunities, sacrifices, or circumstances. Measure yourself against your previous level as well as against meaningful standards. Ask whether you understand more, perform better, recover faster, or make wiser decisions than you did before. Another problem with high expectations is the fear of wasted potential. You may feel that because you have certain abilities, you are obligated to use them perfectly. This can create anxiety around every decision. What if you choose the wrong career? What if you invest your time in the wrong skill? What if you fail after everyone expects you to succeed? These questions can become so overwhelming that you avoid making decisions altogether. Remember that potential is not a debt you must repay to the world. It is an opportunity that develops through experimentation. You will make wrong choices. You will discover that some interests do not belong in your future. You will change direction. This is part of development. High standards are valuable when they inspire discipline, but destructive when they demand perfection. Set standards for effort, integrity, preparation, and learning rather than demanding flawless outcomes. You cannot control every result. You can control whether you prepared honestly, whether you gave the task appropriate attention, whether you learned from the experience, and whether you continued after difficulty. This distinction protects your confidence. It also helps you recover from failure. A mistake becomes information rather than a judgment on your intelligence. You should also allow yourself to rest. Rest is not evidence that you lack ambition. A mind under constant pressure becomes less creative, less focused, and more emotionally reactive. Recovery is part of performance. You do not need to earn the right to rest by destroying yourself first. Develop rhythms that allow intense work and genuine recovery. High expectations should create structure, not constant anxiety. Another important principle is to separate your worth from your achievements. You are more than your productivity, grades, income, career, or accomplishments. If your identity depends entirely on success, every setback becomes an identity crisis. Build character qualities that remain valuable even when results fluctuate. Honesty, discipline, courage, kindness, patience, curiosity, and resilience. These qualities give you a stable foundation. You can pursue excellence without becoming enslaved by the need to prove yourself. Let your standards challenge you, but do not let them become a weapon you use against yourself. Demand growth, not perfection. Demand effort, not impossible control. Demand honesty, not constant achievement. When you learn to carry high expectations without allowing them to crush your peace, your ambition becomes healthier. You stop chasing an imaginary perfect version of yourself and start building a stronger, real version through consistent effort, patience, and self-respect. Questioning yourself despite your abilities can become one of the most confusing problems for an intelligent person because intelligence often makes you more aware of your own limitations. The more you learn, the more clearly you see how much remains unknown. This can create a strange contradiction. You may be capable of doing difficult things, yet you still doubt whether you are capable enough. You may have evidence of your abilities, but your mind continues searching for reasons to question them. You remember the mistakes more clearly than the victories. You notice what you do not know more than what you have already mastered. You compare yourself with people who appear more experienced and conclude that you are behind. This constant self-questioning can look like humility, but if it becomes excessive, it can prevent you from using your abilities at all. There is a difference between healthy self-reflection and destructive self-doubt. Healthy reflection asks, what can I improve? Destructive doubt asks, what if I am not good enough? The first question creates movement. The second can create paralysis. Intelligent people sometimes believe that confidence requires certainty. They think they must know that they will succeed before taking action. But certainty rarely comes before action. Often, confidence develops after you take the step, face the challenge, make mistakes, and discover that you can adapt. You do not need to know exactly how everything will unfold. You need enough courage to begin and enough flexibility to learn along the way. Another reason capable people doubt themselves is that they understand complexity. Someone with limited knowledge may see a task as simple because they do not yet understand its difficulties. Someone with deeper knowledge can see every variable, every potential mistake, and every possible complication. Awareness of complexity can make you feel less confident, even when you are more prepared than most people. Do not mistake awareness of difficulty for lack of ability. Sometimes recognizing the challenge accurately is evidence that you understand it. You should also learn to separate feelings from facts. Feeling uncertain does not prove that you are incapable. Feeling nervous before a presentation does not mean you will perform badly. Feeling inexperienced does not mean you cannot learn. Feeling behind does not mean you are failing. Emotions are real experiences, but they are not always accurate measurements of reality. Look at evidence. What have you accomplished? What skills have you developed? What problems have you solved? What difficult situations have you survived? Build your confidence from evidence rather than from temporary emotion. This does not mean ignoring weaknesses. If you genuinely lack a skill, admit it and work on it. There is strength in accurate self-assessment. You do not need to pretend that you are already excellent. You only need to believe that you can improve through effort, learning, and repetition. This mindset transforms uncertainty. Instead of asking whether you are naturally talented enough, ask what you can learn. Instead of asking whether you are already ready, ask what preparation would make you more ready. Instead of asking whether you are better than someone else, ask whether your abilities are improving. You should also stop waiting for other people to confirm your capability. External recognition can be encouraging, but it is unstable. One day, people may praise you, and the next day they may criticize you. If your confidence depends entirely on their reactions, your emotional state will constantly fluctuate. Develop an internal standard. Know what kind of person you want to be and what behaviors support that identity. Keep your commitments. Prepare carefully. Learn from mistakes. Do difficult things even when you are uncertain. Each action creates evidence that you can trust yourself. Eventually, self-trust becomes stronger than the need for constant reassurance. Questioning yourself can remain useful when it leads to improvement, but it becomes harmful when it prevents action. Keep the humility to recognize what you do not know, but keep enough courage to use what you do know. You do not need to eliminate every doubt before moving forward. You need to stop allowing doubt to make every decision for you. Turning intelligence into action is one of the most important challenges for a thoughtful person because knowledge alone does not automatically create results. You can understand discipline without being disciplined, understand confidence without behaving confidently, understand strategy without executing a plan, and understand productivity while continuing to waste valuable time. The mind can become a comfortable hiding place where you analyze possibilities instead of entering reality. You research one more method, watch another video, read another book, create another plan, and tell yourself that you are preparing. Sometimes preparation is necessary, but there comes a point when additional thinking becomes a sophisticated form of avoidance. You already know enough to begin, yet you continue searching because beginning creates the possibility of failure. Action removes that protection. Once you act, reality can judge your idea. This can be uncomfortable, especially for intelligent people who are accustomed to solving problems mentally. But reality provides information that imagination cannot fully provide. You may spend weeks designing the perfect approach, only to discover through actual experience that your assumptions were wrong. That is not wasted effort, it is valuable feedback. Action teaches you what theory cannot. The key is not to abandon thinking, but to connect thinking with movement. Before acting, define the objective clearly. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? What is the smallest meaningful step you can take? What information is genuinely necessary before beginning? Once those questions are answered, move. Do not wait for perfect motivation. Motivation changes constantly. Discipline means acting according to your priorities, even when your emotions are not cooperating. If you want to write, write. If you want to learn, study. If you want to build a skill, practice. If you want to improve your relationships, communicate. The first attempt may be poor, but it creates information for the second attempt. This is how intelligence becomes practical. You should also reduce the distance between deciding and doing. If you make a decision in the morning but postpone the first action until next week, your mind has time to create excuses. Make the next step immediate and specific. Instead of saying, I will become healthier, decide what you will do today. Instead of saying, I will learn this skill, identify the first lesson and begin it. Vague intentions create vague behavior. Clear actions create momentum. Another important principle is to accept imperfect execution. Intelligent people can become obsessed with optimization before they have enough experience to know what actually needs optimizing. They want the best strategy, the best equipment, the best schedule, and the perfect conditions. But often, the best strategy becomes visible only after you begin. Start with a reasonable approach, observe the results, and improve through feedback. This is more powerful than endlessly planning in isolation. Action also builds confidence because it creates evidence. Every time you complete something difficult, you prove that you can follow through. Every mistake teaches you how to improve. Every challenge you survive expands your understanding of your own capabilities. Confidence therefore becomes grounded in experience rather than imagination. You should also learn to distinguish productive reflection from avoidance. Ask yourself whether your current thinking is producing a new insight or simply repeating the same concern. If you have been considering the same problem for hours without discovering anything new, take a small action. Movement can create clarity. Sometimes you cannot think your way into certainty. You must act your way toward information. Do not let intelligence become an excuse for hesitation. Your mind is a tool, not a shelter from reality. Use it to understand, plan, predict, and prepare, but then enter the world where ideas are tested. The person who knows less but consistently acts may eventually surpass the person who knows more but never begins. Intelligence becomes powerful when it is paired with discipline, courage, and execution. Think carefully, but do not live permanently inside your thoughts. Take the step, gather feedback, correct your direction, and take the next step. That is how knowledge becomes ability, ability becomes experience, and experience becomes real influence over your life.